Hello, welcome to the 19th online lecture of the course Engineering Thermodynamics. In the previous lecture, we completed our discussion on the vapor power cycles and we also did a numerical on Rankine cycle. In today's lecture, we will start our discussion on the gas power cycles. So over here now what will be happening, as you have seen in case of Rankine cycle, we were having water as the working medium. Over here we will be having gases as the working medium, and in particular we will be considering that majority of the cases we will be only having air as our working medium. Okay, so let me first start with the brief description of an ideal cycle. What do we mean by a cycle? So as we have already known from the basic definition of the cycle that if any process or sequence of thermodynamic processes are happening such that the initial and final point is same, that type of process is something known as a cyclic process. Okay, now what basically happen when a thermodynamic process happens in actual practice, we will be having large number of irreversibilities associated with it. Because of that we will be having certain deviation from the ideal processes which we consider for the thermodynamic operations. Okay, so for example over here this dotted line is represented which shows an actual cycle for any arbitrary thermodynamic process. Okay, however the corresponding ideal cycle is also shown over here. So the you can clearly observe that there is a certain difference between the ideal cycle and the actual cycle. However, it is to be noted that it is not possible to go for the theoretical analysis of the actual cycle. So for this type of cycle you cannot do the theoretical analysis. So because of that what we have to do, we have to take certain assumptions. These assumptions will be giving us certain defined thermodynamic processes which we can analyze. So that's why we take certain approximations and normally we get nothing but our ideal cycles. So it doesn't mean that we are deviating significantly from the actual process. If our ideal cycle is having close approximation to that of the actual process, obviously whatever the results we will be getting from our ideal thermodynamic process, these will be close enough to the actual systems. Okay, now let us first start with our discussion on the Carnot cycle, because whenever we start discussion on any of the power cycles, we take the reference cycle as nothing but our Carnot cycle. Okay, so already we know that in Carnot cycle we are having four different types of processes. First process is nothing but, this process is nothing but our isothermal heat addition. Then we are having isentropic expansion process. So this process 2 to 3 is nothing but an expansion process, and then even in 1 to 2 also you can clearly see that volume is also increasing. So 1 to 2 is also having certain amount of expansion, and then 2 to 3 is actually pure expansion process with reversible adiabatic condition. So that's why it is nothing but an isentropic expansion process. And then we are having next process 3 to 4 as nothing but our constant temperature heat rejection, and then 4 to 1 process is there in order to complete the cycle. It means in order to reach to the initial point or start point. Okay, so for that we are having the isentropic compression process. Okay, so this is our PV diagram and corresponding TS diagram is shown over here. Now in this Carnot cycle you will be finding one difference, that we are not having any liquid vapor dome over here. Okay, so why we are not having any liquid vapor dome? Because particularly for this Carnot cycle we are having as our working medium nothing but air. Okay, so if air is our working medium throughout the cycle or corresponding to each and every process in our cycle, we will be having the medium of the substance as nothing but gaseous. So because of the gaseous medium, now what we are having a single phase condition. Okay, so we are operating in the single phase condition, so that's why we are not having over here liquid vapor dome. Okay, so particularly when we plot the Carnot cycle over the liquid vapor dome, in that case we are having water as the working medium, which we have seen in our earlier lectures. Then using air as working medium also, we have seen one configuration of the Carnot cycle where we have used nothing but our piston cylinder arrangement. So this piston depiction of the Carnot cycle using piston cylinder arrangement also I have already shown to you in our earlier lectures. Okay, so now what I have done, I have taken the pressure and volume and temperature entropy diagram from our earlier discussion only. However, in our next slide, what I have done, I have taken different arrangement of the components, which is actually resulting in the formation of a Carnot cycle. Okay, so over here if you see what we are having nothing but an isothermal turbine. So what is happening inside the isothermal turbine, we are adding certain amount of heat, and at the same point of time expansion of the working medium is also taking place. Okay, so if you want to represent this process on TS diagram, you will be finding, say this is our inlet point 1, which is at the entry of the isothermal turbine. So say this is my point number 1. Now what I am doing at point number 1, we are adding certain amount of heat. Okay, however the process inside the turbine is nothing but isothermal. So if the process inside the turbine is isothermal, in that case what will be happening, temperature will be remaining constant, and as inside the turbine there will be expansion of the working medium, so obviously the molecules of the air will be moving away from each other, and randomness, or in case in other words I can say that the entropy will be actually increasing. Okay, and after the first turbine, so this is our nothing but Q input. Then we are having certain process which is happening from state point 2 to state point 3, and this process is happening inside an isentropic turbine. So in case of isentropic turbine, what we will be having, we will be having the isentropic expansion from point number 2 to 3, and we will be having certain amount of turbine work over here. Okay, and then after that we are having an isothermal compressor. So in case of isothermal compressor, once again our working medium is being compressed, and at the same point of time certain amount of heat is also rejected. So because of that, what will be happening, because of the compression, whatever the temperature rise will be happening in the working medium, the same temperature rise will be maintained by removing the heat from the working medium. Okay, so that during the entire compression process temperature remains constant. So ultimately we are getting point number 4, and then from 4 to 1 we are nothing but having a isentropic compressor. Okay, so where we will be supplying certain amount of compressor work. Okay, now schematically if you see what will be happening, these two will be requiring certain work input. Okay, so here work of compression has to be supplied, and these two will be giving us certain work output. Okay, so then ultimately if all are coupled on the same shaft, because this is a cyclic process, so all are nothing but steady flow devices. So in each and every component there will be continuous flow of the working medium, and continuously turbine will be giving us work at the rate of say WT, total turbine work, and WC if we are considering that the rate at which work is being consumed. So we will be ultimately getting W net as nothing but turbine work minus compressor work. Okay, so this is nothing but an simple Carnot cycle which we have seen earlier also. So what we are doing here, we are considering the principle of Carnot cycle as identical. However, the physical mechanism or the arrangement of different mechanical components which we have taken, that we have actually considered over here slightly different. Okay, now this type of air standard cycle, so over here let us consider that air is only our working medium. So this type of gas power cycle which is having air as working medium, it is not practically possible. Why it is not practically possible? Because what will be happening, if you try to see over here, we know that in case of our Carnot cycle, nothing but all the processes are completely reversible. I mean by complete reversibility that these are both internally as well as externally reversible. Okay, so if we have to get the external reversible condition, in that case, say if I have to remove this Q out amount of heat to certain sink over here. Okay, so if T3 or T4 is the temperature during the heat rejection, if I represent it with symbol TL, if I have to make the process as completely reversible, then the temperature of this sink should also be equal to TL, and inside the turbine also temperature is TL. Okay, so now we all know that if we are having temperature difference between the two bodies, then obviously heat will be transferring. Okay, and if we keep on decreasing this temperature difference, then in that case what will be happening? There will be certain amount of heat transfer, but obviously that amount of heat transfer will be taking infinite time to occur. Okay, so for example, if you have to remove Q out amount of heat, that Q out amount of heat, because the temperature difference between the two is negligible, so because of that you will be requiring infinite large amount of time in order to make this heat transfer possible. Okay, on the other hand, when you are going for the isentropic compression, inside the isentropic compressor, there your process is nothing but reversible adiabatic. Okay, and we know that in case of adiabatic process, we mean that there should not be any heat transfer from system to surrounding. Okay, so heat transfer from system to surrounding will not be happening if our system is well insulated, and at the same point of time, if in other words we consider that say our process is happening at so fast pace so that it is not allowing any time for the heat transfer to take place to the surroundings. Okay, so same is the issue with isothermal turbine and isoentropic turbine. So it means you are finding over here that two components are there which require infinite amount of time for the process to happen, whereas there are two components which has to take place in a very small span of time. So because of that, what will be happening, it will be very difficult to operate this entire cycle in a continuous mode. Why? Because here this process is fast, so it will be giving your flow of working medium at very fast rate, whereas this will be requiring the flow of working medium at very slow rate. So because of that, it will be very difficult to operate this entire cycle. Okay, so in other words, we can say that Carnot cycle using gaseous medium, okay, it is a reference cycle, means it will be always resulting in the highest efficiency. However, if we have to practically employ it, it will be almost impossible to make it work in the practical scenarios. Okay, so because of that, generally Carnot cycle using gaseous medium is already also we have seen, and here also we are telling that it is not having that much practical applications. However, it will be used as a reference cycle to gauge the performance of the actual or ideal cycles. Okay, now what we do, earlier I have told you that in majority of the gaseous cycles we will be taking air as working medium. Okay, and while we are considering air as working fluid, we will make certain assumptions. So what are the assumptions which we will be following for the air standard cycles? Let us first try to see. So first assumption is that the working fluid is air, and this air is basically continuously circulating in a closed loop. Obviously, if we have to make it cycle, it has to circulate inside a closed loop. Okay, and we are considering that it is behaving as nothing but an ideal gas. Second assumption we are taking that all the processes that makes the cycle are internally reversible. Okay, so this is the clear difference between the air standard cycles and Carnot cycle. When we take the Carnot cycle, we always says that our cycle is completely reversible. By meaning complete reversibility, I want to say over here that the cycle is both internally reversible as well as externally reversible. Okay, however, we will be going for the approximations of actual cycles. In order to achieve the ideal cycles, we will be finding that if we are considering the complete reversibility, it will be very difficult to make the cycles possible work in practical scenarios. So that's why what we do, one of the condition we remove, and which is particularly of external reversibility. For example, in the previous cycle, if I consider that within this compressor temperature is constant at TL. However, the sink is maintained at certain temperature TL dash. And if I say that the temperature TL dash is significantly lower than the temperature TL. So in that case, what will be happening now, because in between the system and the sink is nothing but acting as surrounding or another system to this or I can say that it is nothing but at the outside of this actual system which is under consideration. So over here what is there, we are having finite temperature difference between our system under observation and surrounding. So because of that, what we will be having over here, we will be having the external reversibility. Okay, so external irreversibility. However, within the system temperature is same. So it means within the system it is internally reversible. However, with its surroundings it is irreversible. So if we are having finite temperature difference, then obviously we will be able to make this heat transfer possible in finite amount of time. So then our cycle will be becoming nothing but practical. Okay, so when we go for air standard cycles, what we do, this assumption we take that our cycles are only internally reversible. So you have to remember this point very, very clearly, that the sole difference between the Carnot cycle and other ideal cycles, for example, we will be studying different type of cycles over here: Otto cycle, diesel cycle, Deol cycle, Brayton cycle, etc. So these are known as nothing but the ideal cycles. So the difference between ideal cycle and your Carnot cycle is that Carnot cycle is both internally and externally reversible, whereas your ideal cycles are only internally reversible. Okay, then next condition we are considering, we know that when we go for actual air standard cycles or actual practical scenarios, for example, in case of our gas turbine engines or our automotive engines, petrol engine, diesel engines, what we do, we are having air as a working medium, and in that air we inject certain amount of fuel, and because of that combustion process happens. So what we will be doing when we will be doing the analysis, during the analysis we will be considering that combustion process is replaced by nothing but heat addition process from an external source. So what we will be considering, that whatever the heat combustion of the fuel has released, same amount of heat has been added from an external source. So this is the next assumption. Then similarly, whatever the exhaust process happens, for example, if you see your automobile engine, your bike engine or car engine, you will be finding that through the silencer certain amount of exhaust gases will be coming out. Okay, so when we will be operating in a cyclic mode, as we have to continuously circulate the working medium inside a closed loop, so what we have to do, we have to once again replace this exhaust process, and this we will be replacing with heat rejection process. Okay, and what we will be doing, basically whatever the heat is there between the working fluid, in order to go to the initial point, we will be releasing this heat to the surroundings. Okay, and as I have told you that in majority of the time we will be using air as our working medium, and this is given in our first assumption also. So for air we will be considering the constant specific heats. Okay, so this is our next assumption, that we will be considering constant specific heats. Okay, so based on these assumptions, we will study few cycles. So let me first start with the discussion on Brayton cycle. So Brayton cycle is given by George Brayton somewhere in 1870, and this cycle is having applications in nothing but our aircraft, and second, it is having applications in gas turbines. Okay, so we are having certain power plants which are operated on the gas principle of Brayton cycle. Okay, so these are gas turbine based operated cycles, and it is also having applications in our aircraft. So all the aircraft engines are basically nothing but based on our Brayton cycle. Okay, so what basically happens in case of Brayton cycle? So in case of Brayton cycle, so this I am representing over here as nothing but our actual process. What actual process happens? So in actual practice, what happens, we are having a compressor in gas turbine. We are having a compressor, and this compressor basically takes fresh air from the surroundings, and it will be compressing this air, and it will be increasing its pressure and temperature at point number 2. So here what we will be having, we will be having increase in pressure and temperature, and after that the high pressure and high temperature gas enters inside a combustion chamber, and inside this combustion chamber this fuel is actually sprayed, and because of this what will be happening inside the combustion chamber, there will be reaction between air and the fuel, and that reaction is nothing but of exothermic type, where we will be having the release of chemical energy of the fuel in terms of heat energy, and because of that heat energy what will be happening, this temperature will be increasing significantly. So in case of Brayton cycle, this fuel is supplied in such a fashion so that the pressure inside the combustion chamber remains constant. So what will be happening inside the combustion chamber, our pressure will be nothing but equal to constant. So only the temperature of the working medium will be, or I can say the products of combustion will be increasing, and then this high pressure and high temperature gas, this will be then expanded over the turbine, and we will be getting certain amount of work from the turbine. Now obviously over here if you see, the compressor and the turbine are mounted on same shaft, so it clearly shows that whatever the work is required to operate the compressor, that work is also being provided by the turbine only. Okay, so whatever the work we will be getting at the output of this same shaft, that will be nothing but W net, and which is nothing but equal to WT minus WP. Okay, and then whatever the exhaust gases are there, these are nothing but sent to surroundings. Okay, and before directly sending it to the surroundings, certain amount of treatment is also done in actual scenarios, and particularly in order to meet certain exhaust regulations. Okay, then so this is the actual scenario, that how actual Brayton cycle based gas turbine engine operates. Okay, however, when we will be doing the thermodynamic analysis, what we have to do now, for doing the thermodynamic analysis, we have to now consider nothing but air standard assumption. So first air standard assumption is that we have to consider air as working medium. So now if you see, initially inside the compressor and at the entry of the combustion chamber, we are having only air as the working medium. Okay, however, after this point what happens, we are adding certain amount of fuel, and after that fuel, the air and fuel are reacting, and these will be leading to the products of combustion such as carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, etc., or water vapor, etc. Okay, but when we will be going for the thermodynamic cyclic analysis or ideal cycle analysis, what we have to consider? We have to consider that throughout the cycle we are having air as working medium only. Okay, so how this assumption is valid, though this is not exactly valid, but however this assumption is not having much error. So why much error is not there? Let me just explain. When this air is entering from this point, what we are having inside the air, we are having nearly equal to 78% of nitrogen. Okay, and After that, what we are doing inside the combustion chamber, we are adding certain amount of fuel. First point we have to note, that is the amount of fuel added is very small in comparison to the amount of the gas, which is amount of the air which is coming from the compressor. And second point is that whatever the air we are supplying, in that air 78% of the portion is nitrogen, and nitrogen is an kind of inert gas which will not participate over here in our combustion process. So because of that, we will be having majority of the gas as nothing but in the same composition as that of nitrogen only. So because of that, what we do, we consider that our working fluid is nothing but air. Okay. Second assumption we have to take is that we have to replace our combustion process with equivalent heat addition process. So that is what now we have shown over here in this right hand side diagram. So this right hand side diagram is nothing but it is of a thermodynamic cycle. So why this is a cycle? Because what we have done over here, the first thing we have done is that this, whatever this exhaust was coming, we have connected one device over here in such a fashion so that it is bringing back this point number 4 once again to the initial stage of the working medium which is required at the inlet of the compressor. Okay, so this additional heat exchanger is required which will be bringing back our working medium to the initial point, and that will be helping us in nothing but achieving a closed loop cycle. Okay, so in order to do so, in this heat exchanger we are removing Q out amount of heat to the surroundings. Then once our working medium is coming to the initial point, then compression process is identical. After compression process, now what we have done, we have replaced our combustion chamber with a heat exchanger, and in this heat exchanger we are adding Q in amount of heat. And after that, the process inside the turbine is also same, and at the exit of the turbine, whatever we are getting, then we are treating that so that we are once again getting back to our initial condition. Okay, so this type of cycle is something which is known as our Brayton cycle. So particularly this closed loop cycle. Okay, and now what we will do, we will try to see its property, all the different processes on the property diagram. So over here I have represented temperature, entropy and pressure volume diagram. So if you try to see the process inside the compressor, which is nothing but process number 1 to 2, it is nothing but an isentropic process. So over here 1 to 2 you see S is constant on PV diagram. Then the process number 2 to 3, now when we have considered the cycle, during the cycle what we have done, we have replaced the combustion process with heat addition. So we are adding this Q in heat addition, and nothing but this heat is being added at constant pressure. Okay. Then we are having, so this is our constant pressure heat addition on PV diagram. Then we are having expansion process inside the turbine, and this expansion process is nothing but isentropic. So on TS diagram it is represented with the help of a vertical line, and over here this line shows the constant entropy 3 to 4 on a PV diagram. Okay, so this was our open cycle till point number 4. Now in order to make this as a closed loop cycle, what we have to do, we have to once again go back to point number 1. So what we will be doing, the pressure at point number 1 and point number 4 is same. So what we have to do, we have to remove certain amount of heat at constant pressure so that we can come back once again to point number 1. So this is our process 4 to 1, nothing but our heat rejection process. Okay, so now if you try to see what we are doing during the process number 2 to 3, we are adding certain amount of heat which I am representing as Q1. 3 to 4 we are getting certain amount of work as nothing but turbine work WT. Then 4 to 1 we are removing certain amount of heat which I have represented as Q out, and during the process number 1 to 2, nothing but we are adding certain amount of work which is nothing but our compressor work. Now this is nothing but a thermodynamic cycle. We know that for a cyclic process, the cyclic integral of Q will be equal to cyclic integral of W. So it means our cyclic integral of Q is nothing but we are adding Q in amount of heat and we are removing Q out amount of heat. So Q in minus Q out will be nothing but equal to WT is the turbine work, output work, minus WC is the compressor work. So I can clearly write from our first law of thermodynamics for cyclic process, I can write from there that W net is nothing but equal to Q in minus Q out. Okay, so this is one thing. Now what we have to do, we have to determine the efficiency. So we know that efficiency of the cycle is nothing but equal to W net divided by Q in. So if I replace W net with Q in minus Q out, I will be finding our efficiency as nothing but equal to 1 minus Q out divided by Q in. Okay, so this is the formulation of efficiency. Now let us try to drive this formulation of efficiency. So I have just now written that my efficiency eta is nothing but equal to 1 minus Q out by Q in. So if you see our Q out is nothing but Cp into T4 minus T1 divided by Q in will be nothing but equal to Cp, because this process 2 to 3 heat addition is happening at constant pressure. So Cp times temperature is T3 minus T2. So all these heats I am writing nothing but on per kg basis. Now if we consider the measurement of Cp at same temperature, so in that case Cp will be same, so Cp will be cancelling, and ultimately we will be finding that our efficiency is nothing but equal to 1 minus, if I take T1 as common, T4 by T1 minus 1 divided by, if I take T3 or T2 as common over here, so I will be finding that T3 by T2 minus 1. Okay, so this is our efficiency. Now we know that process number 1 to 2 is nothing but an isentropic process, and isentropic process is nothing but reversible adiabatic process. So for process number 1 to 2 I can write that P2 power 1 minus gamma into T2 power gamma is nothing but equal to constant. So I can simply say that P1 1 minus gamma into T1 gamma will be nothing but equal to P2 1 minus gamma into T2 gamma. So finally what I will be getting from here, finally I will be getting that T1 by T2 will be nothing but equal to P2 divided by P1. So T1 by T2 will be nothing but P2 divided by P1 raised to power 1 minus gamma divided by gamma. Okay, so this is something which we have obtained over here. Similarly, if I go for process number 3 to 4, this is also an isentropic process. I can write that P3 power 1 minus gamma T3 gamma will be equal to P4 1 minus gamma into T4 gamma, and from this one I can simply write that T3 by T4 is nothing but equal to P4 by P3 into 1 minus gamma by gamma. Okay, so this is something which I have derived from 1 to 2 and 2 to 1. Now we know that P2 by P1 is nothing but equal to P3 by P4. Okay, so this point is clear to all, because over here if you see this 2 to 3 process is nothing but a constant pressure process. Similarly 1 to 4 is a constant pressure process. So I can say that P2 by P1 is equal to P3 by P4, and let me call this as nothing but our pressure ratio Rp. Okay, so if I write this one as Rp, what I can ultimately say, I can ultimately say my T1 by T2 as nothing but equal to T1 by T2 I can say nothing but equal to pressure ratio power 1 minus gamma divided by gamma. Okay, so I can say that pressure ratio to power 1 minus gamma divided by gamma. And similarly, if I write for T3 by T4, and if I go for T3 by T4, for T3 by T4 I can say that it is nothing but 1 by Rp into 1 minus gamma by gamma. Okay, so this is something which I can write for from this one. So ultimately what I can say from both these formulations, I can say that nothing but T1 by T2 is equal to nothing but T4 by T3. Okay, so finally what I will be getting from here I can say that my T3 by T2 is nothing but equal to T4 by T1. So if T3 by T2 is equal to T4 by T1, what will be happening from this formulation? From here I can say that these two values will be cancelling out, and I can clearly write that efficiency is nothing but equal to 1 minus T1 by T2. So if I am writing this as 1 minus T1 by T2, I can simply write efficiency as nothing but equal to 1 minus Rp raised to the power 1 minus gamma. Okay, so this is in bracket divided by gamma. So this is nothing but the formula of efficiency for my Brayton cycle. So efficiency is nothing but equal to 1 minus pressure ratio of the cycle, because this Brayton cycle is operating between two pressures. So 1 minus pressure ratio of the cycle into 1 minus gamma divided by gamma, where we know that gamma is nothing but equal to Cp divided by Cv, ratio of the specific heat for an ideal gas. Okay, so this is the efficiency of the Brayton cycle. So from here you can see, as I have told you, that the efficiency of Brayton cycle is nothing but as a function of pressure ratio. So if you plot this one for air, because we know that for air gamma is nothing but equal to 1.4. So if we consider gamma as 1.4 and plot the efficiency as function of pressure ratio, we will be finding that our curve is having this type of nature. Okay, now it is this shaded region over here is shown as a typical range of pressure ratios which is normally operated in gas turbine engines. Okay, however this is a more wider range. For many of the practical engines, this ratio is even limited between 11 to 16. Okay, so this 11 to 16 number of pressure ratio is actually even more practical. Okay, now one more important parameter I want to discuss over here. As I have told you in case of our Rankine cycle also, that maximum cycle temperature. So if you see over here, our maximum cycle temperature is nothing but T3. So maximum cycle temperature T3 is something which is limited by the materials of the turbine and combustion chamber, whatever we are using for in our practical Brayton cycle. So what happens basically, this maximum temperature is having certain limitation, that this T3 is something which is limited by the metallurgical limits of the materials. So that's why we cannot go beyond certain amount of temperature. So over here what we have done, we have limited our maximum temperature to say 1000 Kelvin, and then minimum temperature we have kept at say 300 Kelvin. Now for by considering this same maximum temperature of 1000 Kelvin and same minimum temperature of 300 Kelvin, what we have done, we have plotted different Brayton cycles considering the different pressure ratio. So one of the cycle you can see over here, this one we are having, which is having pressure ratio of nothing but equal to 2. Another cycle we have plotted for a pressure ratio of 8.2, and another cycle we have plotted for pressure ratio of 15. So if you see this cycle, what you will be finding, that for pressure ratio of 2 you are having this much portion of the work, because area under this curve will be nothing but equal to net work output. When you have changed the pressure ratio from 2 to 8.2, your area enclosed within the cycle has actually increased. So it means net amount of work done has actually increased. And if when you have further increased the pressure ratio from 8.2 to 15, you will be able to observe now the area within the cycle has actually once again decreased. So it means if you are maintaining a maximum temperature limit, and for that maximum temperature limit, if you plot the efficiency, or I can say, I will not call the efficiency, rather I will call the net work of the turbine. So I am writing this as nothing but W. So if you plot this W as function of pressure ratio, you will be finding that with increase in pressure ratio, first it will be increasing and reaching a maximum value, and after that the further increase of pressure ratio will be actually decreasing our net work output. Okay, so this is something which we have concluded from these two curves. Now let us try to see the actual Brayton cycle. So ideal Brayton cycle, we have seen that we will be having isentropic compression, isentropic expansion, and then constant pressure. So this line is nothing but P equal to constant. This is also a constant pressure line. So constant pressure heat addition, and this line is nothing but constant pressure heat rejection. So as I have told you in earlier cases also of Rankine cycle, that what happens within the turbine and compressor or pump, we will be having certain amount of irreversibilities associated. Due to these irreversibilities, the process will not be perfectly isentropic. For example, this 3 to 4S, instead of that we are getting over here 3 to 4A. Similarly, for the compressor, we are having instead of 2S point as output point, 2A as our output point. And moreover, within the systems or heat exchangers where heat is added and heat is rejected, there also we will be having certain drop of pressure because of the friction losses. So that is also shown over here with the help of dotted line. So this cycle we have plotted over here is nothing but our actual Brayton cycle. So if I now write down the isentropic efficiency of the turbine, that will be coming out to be nothing but equal to enthalpy at 0.3 minus enthalpy at 0.4A. This will be our actual work divided by ideal work will be H3 minus H4S. And once again, if we write all these enthalpy in terms of the temperature limits, ultimately we will be finding that efficiency of turbine is nothing but equal to temperature at 0.3 minus temperature of 0.4A divided by temperature of 0.3 minus temperature of 0.4S. Similarly, for the compressor also you can write down the value of efficiency as now what will be happening when we will be going for the compressor, then we have to now write down the ideal work by actual work. Why? Because compressor is a work consuming device, and in case of ideal cycle it will be taking lesser work rather than that of a actual cycle. Okay, so this is our efficiency of the compressor, which I have already told you both these efficiencies while describing the Rankine cycle also. Okay, so in actual cycle there will be certain deviations from the theoretical cycles. However, if you see the deviations are close enough to the theoretical cycle, it means whatever the analysis you are doing from based on the theoretical assumptions, this is having close approximations with the actual solution. Okay, now next part we will do for the efficiency or for the consideration of Brayton cycle with regeneration. So I have already introduced the concept of regeneration in case of already in case of our Rankine cycle. So let me now try to introduce the same concept for Brayton cycle. Okay, so if you try to see over here what is basically happening, this point number 4 is nothing but our point at the exit of the turbine, and this point number 2 is nothing but at the inlet of the compressor, and at the inlet of the combustion chamber or heat exchanger. Now if you try to see what we are having the condition where temperature of point number 4 is more in comparison to temperature of point number 2. So what we are doing actually we are removing this heat in the process number 4 to 1, and in process number 2 to 3 we are adding certain amount of heat. Okay, however, if you see for certain range of the temperatures, you will be finding that there is a crossover between the two processes, means the process of heat rejection particularly in this region and the process of heat addition. So the reason this region is particularly bounded in between the dotted lines. Okay, so what we can do now, we can consider a situation where when our working medium is coming out of the turbine at point number 4, now instead of directly passing it through our heat exchanger where heat is rejected, we will be passing through it through another heat exchanger, and in this heat exchanger what we will be doing, from the another side we will be passing our working medium, which is nothing but coming from where? Coming from the outlet of the compressor. Okay, so which is at point number 2. Now obviously we know that because the temperature of point number 4, so means temperature of this stream, this is T4 and this temperature over here is T2. As we know that T4 is nothing but greater than T2, so obviously there will be certain amount of heat transfer in this direction. So basically whatever this fluid is going out, this will be transferring the heat to the fluid which is going out of the compressor. Okay, so now let us consider that inside this heat exchanger certain heating of this fluid has taken place and it has reached to temperature 5, and similarly certain cooling of this fluid has taken place, this gaseous medium has taken place and it has reached to state number 6. So over here now if you see, this is our nothing but point number 6 and this is our point number 5. So it means whatever the heat we have actually removed from point number 4 to point number 6, same amount of heat has been taken by this medium from point number 2 to point number 5. So it means now when the system has actually, or I can say when the working medium is entering inside the combustion chamber, then it is requiring heat only from point number 5. So it means for producing the same amount of net work output, it is actually taking lesser amount of heat input. Okay, so in that case what will be happening? Our efficiency will be improving. Now let us try to derive the formulation of efficiency. So what we know, we know that efficiency is nothing but equal to 1 minus Q out divided by Q in. So now here if you try to see, our Q out is nothing but, because this 4 to 6 process is now happening within the cycle inside another device which we are calling as regenerator. So now output process is nothing but from 6 to 1. So my efficiency will be 1 minus Cp into T6 minus T1 divided by, and heat addition is taking place from point number 3 to point number 5. So here I can write Cp into T5 minus T3 minus T5. Okay. Now one important point we have to remember over here. So what we are doing basically, you try to see, we are heating from point number 2 and this we are heating, and after heat exchanger we are considering that our medium is coming at point number 5, and when we are removing the heat it is moving from point number 4 to point number 6. Now if we consider that within the heat exchanger, so obviously between these two dotted lines what we are having nothing but a heat exchanger, and that heat exchanger we are calling as regenerator. So now what we have to say that if the process inside this regenerator is actually perfect, it means perfect or ideal, if we are having 100% efficiency of the heat transfer process, in that case what will be happening, instead of getting this point number 5, we will be reaching nothing but till point number 5 dash, and the only assumption is that we are considering that the specific heat of both the working mediums are same. So if we consider the same specific heat, the temperature change for same amount of heat exchange will be same in both the fluids. So that's why what will be happening, if we consider perfect heat exchange and constant specific heat for both mediums, we will be finding this, that for ideal regeneration, this point number 2 will be reaching to the maximum possible temperature of point number 4 inside the regenerator. So it means till point number 5 dash, and temperature of 5 dash is nothing but equal to that of this temperature of 4. So it means for ideal regeneration, my point number 5 will be nothing but equal to point number 5 dash. Similarly, for ideal regeneration, if this is going till point 5 dash, this will also go till point number, say I am calling this point over here as nothing but 6 dash. So this 6 will also be equal to nothing but till point number 6 dash. Now if you see this temperature diagram, you will be finding that temperature of 6 dash is equal to temperature of T2 and temperature of 5 dash equal to temperature of 4. So CP I will be cancelling, and instead of 6 dash now I can write T2 minus T1 divided by, over here what I can do, I can simply write this 5 dash as 4, so I can write simply as T3 minus T4. Okay, now what I will be doing, now I will take T1 and T3 as these I will take common, so I will be finding 1 minus T1 divided by T3, and over here we will be having nothing but T2 by T1 minus 1, and over here we will be having nothing but 1 minus T4 by T3. Okay, we already have seen that T2 by T1 is nothing but, from our earlier slides we know T2 by T1 is nothing but equal to pressure ratio to the power, let me see. So what we are having, yes, we have T2 by T1 or T1 by T2 as pressure ratio power 1 minus gamma by gamma. So it means T2 by T1 will be nothing but Rp power gamma minus 1 by gamma. So this T2 by T1 I can write Rp raised to power gamma minus 1 divided by gamma minus 1, and this T4 by T3, let me see this one also, what we are having, T4 by T3. So T4 by T3, if I try to see over here, T4 by T3 is nothing but Rp power gamma minus 1 by gamma. So this I can write 1 minus Rp power gamma minus 1 by gamma as my T4 by T3. Okay, so now if I take Rp power gamma minus 1 by gamma as common, and what I will be finding, eta will be becoming 1 minus T1 by T3 into Rp power, say I am taking gamma minus 1 by gamma as common, so inside I will be getting 1 minus 1 by Rp power. So it means 1 by Rp power will be becoming nothing but Rp to power 1 minus gamma by gamma, and this one also 1 minus, if I take so above I have taken common, and here I am writing as it is. Just let me check once with the what is T4 by T3. Okay, so T4 by T3 is actually, I have substituted there wrongly. So if you see, T4 by T3 will be nothing but will be becoming Rp power 1 minus gamma by gamma. So T4 by T3 over here I have to write as nothing but equal to 1 minus gamma by gamma. So I have taken over here this as common, and here I have kept as it is, so 1 minus gamma by gamma. So this will be cancelling out, and ultimately I will be finding that efficiency of ideal regeneration cycle is nothing but equal to 1 minus T1 by T3 into Rp raised to power gamma minus 1 divided by gamma. Okay, so this is my efficiency of the ideal regenerative cycle. So over here what I have done for different pressure ratios, I have plotted the efficiency of regenerative Brayton cycle. So this you have seen for nothing but when you were having gamma equal to 1 by 4, and this was without regeneration. Now over here, when we are having regeneration, ratio of T1 by T3 is also coming into picture, and we are having these lines added for different values of T1 by T3 ratio. Okay, so from here you can see that particularly near the low pressure ratios and for a low value of T1 by T3 you will be having the high value of efficiency. Okay, of the regenerative cycle. One important point we need to define for regeneration is that, as I have already told you, that when we take the ideal cycle, for the ideal cycle our point was moving from 2 to 5 days. However, for actual cycle it was going from 2 to 5. So if I write actual heat transfer, we will be finding nothing but Cp into T5 minus T2. Okay, and whereas if I write down the ideal heat transfer in our heat exchanger, that will be nothing but equal to Cp into T5 dash minus T2, and 5 dash is nothing but equal to T4. So I can simply write that the ideal or maximum possible heat transfer inside the regenerator is nothing but equal to Cp into T4 minus T2. So we define factor of heat exchanger performance or regenerator performance, and we call that factor as nothing but epsilon, and this epsilon is nothing but known as the effectiveness of the regenerator or effectiveness of the heat exchanger. This is nothing but equal to Q actual divided by Q ideal, and ultimately we will be finding its value as nothing but T5 minus T2 divided by T4 minus T2. Okay, and so here T4 minus T2 is corresponding to the maximum possible, and T5 minus T2 is for the actual one. So generally, because always we cannot achieve the 100% efficiency, so in order to go for the practical values, generally the value of this effectiveness for typical regenerator is kept close to 0.85 to 0.87. Okay, so this is for general Brayton cycle based regeneration system. Okay, next one more important variant of the Brayton cycle I want to discuss over here. This is nothing but Brayton cycle with intercooling. So what we do, what I have shown over here is nothing but a pressure volume diagram. Inside this pressure volume diagram I am having two pressures P1 and P2, and we are having different compression processes. So one compression process is taking place from point number 1 to say point number 2, and this compression process is happening through path, isothermal path. Okay, so in this, if you see, as we know that area under PV diagram is nothing but our displacement work, or area under VDP diagram in this particularly this hatched area on the vertical axis, this is nothing but our work done in an open system. So our compressor is open system, so we will be finding this as our isothermal work. If same process I have to do with the intercooling, so what I have to do, I have to go by which route from if I have to do the same process nothing but in an isentropic manner. So in an isentropic manner we will be having total process path from point number 1 to point number C, and this area will also be coming into picture for the work done. Okay, now what we do, if instead of doing this compression process from point number P1 to point number 2, point number pressure P2 in a single stage using the isentropic path, if we first go for intercooling, in that case what will be happening, we will be able to save certain amount of work. Why? We know that in case of open system, work done is nothing but equal to minus integral of VdP, where this V is nothing but specific volume. Okay, so what will be happening when we will be compressing certain fluid, its specific volume will be actually increasing. So because of that, what will be happening now, what we have to do, so what we are doing now, when we are going in a single stage, we are getting significant amount of work done. Now if we want to save this work, what we are doing, first we are doing this compression process till some intermediate pressure or intermediate point A, and first this, so that's why this is our first stage of compression. And then after that, what we are doing at this intermediate pressure, what we have done, first we have taken a compressor. So inside this compressor from one point to point number A we have compressed, and then at point number A we have used some heat exchanger, in which this heat exchanger we have supplied some external cold medium. Okay, so what this cold medium will be doing, this cold medium will be changing the temperature of this one. So if this is cold, obviously there will be heat exchange in this direction, so we will be getting certain point B. Okay, and this B point is such that the temperature of V is less in comparison to temperature of A. So what will be happening, if this temperature of B is less, specific volume of B will also be less in comparison to specific volume of point number A. And after that, what we will be doing, once again then doing the remaining compression to reach till point number D. So if instead of going for single isentropic stage, okay, through from point number 1 to A to point number C, if we first go till some intermediate pressure at point number A, and from A to V if we go for intercooling, and then from B to D if we use another stage of compression, what we will be able to do, whatever this work done we have shown over here as shaded region, this much work we will be able to save during the compression process. Okay, so it means that if we employ intercooling during the process of compression in our Brayton cycle, we will be able to save certain amount of work. Okay. Now same thing is there, Brayton cycle with reheating. So for saving the work, what we have done in the compression process, we have employed intercooler. Now for obtaining the maximum amount of work in a turbine, what we have to do, we have to do reheating. So for example, first let me consider that this is our temperature entropy diagram, and this is the process number 3 to 4 inside some turbine. Now if I so this is single stage based process. Now if I go first only till point number 3 dash, and then at 3 dash if I go for once again the reheating at constant pressure. Okay, now if I once again go for reheating at constant pressure, and then from this point number 3 double dash, once again if I expand, and let me now consider my new point at the exit is nothing but equal to 4 dash. In that case, what will be happening? So earlier our cycle was nothing but operating within this much region, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So we were getting earlier this much amount of work, whatever was enclosed in between point 1, 2, 3 and 4. So if instead of going for the single stage expansion, if we do expansion first till certain intermediate pressure at some point 3 dash, and then if we do the reheating and once again if we do the expansion in the low pressure turbine, in that case what we will be having, we will be getting certain amount of additional work over here. Okay, so this additional work is actually increasing nothing but our net output of the turbine. So second arrangement what we can do is, we can first use a high pressure turbine, and whatever the steam is coming from high pressure turbine, once again we can pass it through our nothing but combustion chamber, and then once again we can go for, so this was at point number 3, this was at point number 3 dash, this is at point number 3 double dash, and then we can go for low pressure turbine, and then we can enter to our point number 4 double dash. Okay, so this is nothing but use of reheating in case of our Brayton cycle. So this, what I have done over here, this diagram I have shown for a Brayton cycle, which is including both intercooling, reheating, as well as it is also including the effect of regeneration. Okay, so obviously as I have told you, intercooler will be employed nothing but between two compressors, compressor 1 and compressor 2, in order to save the work of compression, and then reheater will be employed in between turbine 1 and turbine 2. So over here we are having reheater, and regenerator will be employed after compression and before the combustion chamber. Okay, and at the exit of turbine from other side. So this is our nothing but regenerator. So this is this block diagram. If you know the individual concept of intercooling, reheating and regeneration, you will be easily able to integrate on a common system. Then this is nothing but the corresponding temperature entropy diagram. So if you try to see, this process 1 to 2 is nothing but first compression process which is happening inside the compressor 1. Then 2 to 3 process is nothing but intercooling process, where we have removed certain amount of heat with the help of some external fluid. Then process 3 to 4 is second compression stage. Then if you try to see, this 4 to 5 is nothing but ideal regeneration, and 5 to 6 we are having nothing but our combustion chamber, and 6 to 7 high pressure turbine or turbine 1. Then 7 to 8 we are having nothing but reheating. So this process over here 7 to 8 is nothing but a reheating process, and then 8 to 9 we are having expansion inside the low pressure turbine, and 9 to 10 is something which is going to regenerator, and from 10 to 1 then we will be having nothing but our heat exchanger to remove the heat. Okay, so this is this I have included over here, the concept of Brayton cycle with intercooling. Now one important point you have to remember, that when we operate the Brayton cycle in our actual system, during that time what we do, we provide particularly the very high air fuel ratio. So one reason of providing the high air fuel ratio is that whatever the air we are supplying, that first acts as a medium for the flow of heat, and also helps in the combustion process where the fuel is going through the oxidation stage, and at the same point of time certain amount of air is also supplied for cooling of the turbine blades. So because of that, what happens, particularly in case of Brayton cycle, air to fuel ratio is very high. So ratio of air to fuel is in the range of around 50:1. Okay, so that one important point you have to remember. And second point you have to remember is that in case of Brayton cycle, we define what we are having. We are having compressor work of the order of around 50 to 60% of the turbine work. Okay, so that is also one important point you have to remember. In case of our Rankine cycle, what we were having, the pump work was almost negligible in comparison to the turbine work. Why? Because in the turbine we were having expansion of the steam which was having very high specific volume, whereas in case of the pump we were having pure liquid where the specific volume was very low. However, in case of Brayton cycle, the medium is almost same, only the temperatures and pressures are changing. Because of that, there is not significant change in the specific volume. So though there is a certain change, but obviously it is not very large. So because of that, what will be happening, the compressor work is 50 to 60% of the turbine work. So because of that, normally we employ intercooling in order to get more net work output. Then one final thing I want to discuss in this lecture, so which is nothing but our ideal jet propulsion cycle. So whatever the Brayton cycle we have discussed till this slide, over here what we are having, the entire expansion of the medium is happening in the turbine and we are getting net work output. So this type of cycle is employed in gas turbine based power generation. Whereas if we go for aircraft, in case of aircraft, what we are having the expansion inside the turbine. So if you see the structure of the aircraft, in aircraft first we are having a diffuser section where at the inlet we are taking air at atmospheric pressure, and inside the diffuser we will be having certain increase of the pressure till point number 2. After that we are having axial compressor. So this is our different stages of compression. Then from 3 to 4 we are nothing but having burner section where fuel is injected and combustion process takes place. Then from process number 4 to 5 we are having nothing but expansion over the turbine. Okay, and then 5 to 6 we are having nothing but our nozzle, because in case of jet propulsion cycle or in case of aircraft, what we have to do, we have to obtain certain amount of thrust in order to overcome the drag so that aircraft can move in forward direction. Okay, so the principle of the cycle is identical to that of Brayton cycle only, but few components are different. So if you try to see the process at point number 1, air is entering, and in the diffuser section its pressure is increasing slightly. So this point number 2. Then from 2 to 3 the pressure is increasing inside the compressor. Then at point number 3 what is happening, fuel is sprayed inside the burner section and then combustion takes place, which releases significant amount of heat. Now here the rate of fuel spray is controlled in such a fashion so that the pressure during the combustion process remains almost constant. So therefore this 3 to 4 combustion process is nothing but a constant pressure process. Then we are having a turbine, and in this turbine we are having expansion. So expansion in the turbine is partial. We are not doing the full expansion inside the turbine because our motive is not to obtain the work output. Okay, rather our motive is to generate the thrust. So that's why we go for the partial expansion in the turbine, and the sole purpose of turbine is to provide the input power for compressor, because for operating the compressor what we have to do, we need to provide some power. So turbine is used in such a way so that, or the expansion inside the turbine is done in such a way so that we are getting only the work which is sufficient enough to support the compression process. Okay. And at the same point of time, say if we are having certain auxiliary devices in our aircraft, for example lights, etc., so this is able to provide sufficient electricity for that one. Okay, and after that what we do, inside the nozzle we allow the expansion of high pressure and high temperature gases, and because of this expansion what happens at the exit of the nozzle, means at point number 6, once again we find that our pressure is nothing but equal to atmospheric pressure, and inside this nozzle what happens, basically we are having the generation of or conversion of pressure energy into kinetic energy. So because of that, at the exit of the nozzle we will be having very fast moving gases which are coming out of the nozzle. So because of that, what will be happening, this jet will be getting some thrust in the forward direction. Okay, so if we have to estimate that what is the force which is exerted by the expansion of gases on the jet in the opposite direction, so that we can estimate from the Newton's second law of motion. So force will be nothing but equal to whatever the mass flow rate of gases we are having into velocity at the exit of the nozzle minus velocity at the inlet of the nozzle. So this is nothing but change in momentum. And moreover, you might be thinking that we will be having certain pressure over here and certain pressure over here, so that pressure difference can also create certain amount of thrust. However, if you try to see, at inlet point also pressure is equal to atmospheric, and at exit point also nozzle is designed in such a fashion so that at the exit of the nozzle we are having pressure equal to atmospheric pressure. So because of that, thrust force exerted on the aircraft will be equal to m dot into VE minus VI, where VE minus VI into m dot is nothing but rate of change of momentum across the nozzle. So it means in case of any aircraft, all the thrust force is basically generated by nozzle only. Okay, and now if we have to determine that, okay, how much power this cycle is generating, so power will be nothing but equal to force into velocity of aircraft, because now aircraft is moving, so we have to consider the velocity of the aircraft. So force we have just now determined m dot into VE minus VI, and over here we will be having in multiplication as U aircraft as nothing but velocity of aircraft also. Okay, now for this type of systems where our motive is to generate the thrust force or to generate the propulsion power, we define efficiency as nothing but our propulsion efficiency eta P, and this propulsion efficiency is nothing but equal to WP divided by Q inlet. So WP is the rate, W dot P is the rate at which propulsion power is being generated, and Q dot N is the heat supplied to obtain that propulsion. So heat supplied is nothing but amount of fuel we have injected, that will be giving us mass into calorific value of the fuel as nothing but our heat supplied in the aircraft engine. Okay. So this is about the Brayton cycle. So we have, I think, discussed all different variants of the Brayton cycle. Now after this we will be studying auto, diesel and dual cycles in our next lectures, and whatever the problems on Brayton cycles we will be doing, these I will discuss after completion of the discussion on auto, diesel and dual cycle.